Welcome to Film Freaks. This is Justin Llewellyn,
Eddie Williams.
and here we are discussing our. This is our non-spoiler review of Justice League, which is directed by Zack Snyder and is the fifth film in the DC extended universe that began with Man of Steel and continued with Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, and so forth. And this film stars Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Amy Adams, Ezra Miller, Jason Momoa, and among others. And this is following the events of the last film, Batman vs Superman, where, basically Batman, played by Ben Affleck, is having to round up the members, the metahumans that were referenced in Batman vs Superman, to recruit them to be able to help him on stopping a supernatural force known as Steppenwolf and his parademons that are trying to basically go after what's called the Mother Box that can give them ultimate power to create a new Earth. And it's up to Batman and the other members of the metahumans, who are Ezra Miller, who plays Flash, and you also have Jason Momoa, who plays Aquaman, and you also get Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg. And also coming back is Princess Diana, Wonder Woman, played by Gal Gadot, who is also helping Batman on his journey to recruit the other members of the Justice League. Now, a little backstory. Now since the Man of Steel came out in 2013, which I've actually been on board with what DC's been doing with these movies, because to be honest, when Man of Steel came out in 2013, I actually enjoyed that film, and I liked the way that DC was taking more of like a gritty approach with comic books.
I enjoyed it too, Man of Steel.
Yeah, and I liked the world that they set up with Man of Steel and how we were supposed to be getting more things involved with. They were trying to ground things a lot more darker in terms of DC, following the success of like the Nolan films, the Nolan Batman movies. And when Man of Steel came out, it got me really excited to see what other franchises that they'll do to kind of take this universe. And then when Batman vs Superman came out, it showed that that we're going to be seeing later characters introduced from the comic books that we've never seen before, like Flash and Aquawoman. And we finally got a chance to see Batman in the same movie with Superman.
Aquawoman's in there.
Yeah, and so, as you can tell, with the way that DC has pretty much been going so far, I've enjoyed their films, but I can admit that it does feel like, for a majority of comic book fans, a lot of fans in general, that it seems that this universe has been kind of hit and miss, basically.
Yes, it's apart from Marvel, who's done fantastic with their universe, building trilogies after trilogies, building up their character development to lead into something much bigger, which is done right. I don't go by fanboy of anything. I like both, Marvel and DC equally. But it seems like DC has been kind of messy with their universe.
Yeah, I mean,
and you gotta put some little bit blame to Warner Brothers. A lot of it to blame because they like to butcher so much. They have. We saw it with Batman vs Superman. Was one of their biggest fuck ups on butchering films. But it seems like they're kind of going like instead of like Marvel's in order version, they're trying to do their own. But it's also kind of like, a lot of the solo films, we're kind of not going to get character developments later. We're going to get them later, as opposed, early, because build this Justice League. And it does feel like, with this universe, it seems like a lot of it's been suffering with its character development.
Yeah, they're basically doing the opposite approach, where they're trying to do the crossover films first and then try to build up with the solo films later, which I like the idea of it because it at least shows that they're not trying to copy Marvel and they're not trying to draw out certain things with their characters, but it does make you kind of wonder what would happen if they did it the opposite way. But regardless, though...
Exactly, and I think that if they did do, I get they don't want to copy Marvel, but it still hurts the character development. When it comes to the bigger shit, that's what it still suffers at.
Yeah, but with this one coming out with Justice League, I was actually really, really hyped for it because keep in mind, before even Justice League was announced, when I was growing up, Justice League I actually got introduced from the old school, the old old cartoon shows that came out in like the 60s and stuff, called The Challenge of the
Yep.
Super Friends, which basically got me introduced to Batman and Superman, Wonder Woman, all them together. And the biggest one that I remember growing up with was actually the Justice League TV series that came out in the early 2000s, which really put me on the map of
Yeah, I
getting.
remember watching some of them.
Yeah, and because that TV series, the one from 2001, it actually really got me into the team altogether, and even got me introduced to other DC characters that I'd never seen before, like Flash, or not Flash, Martian Manhunter, and all them. So there, you can tell that I was always a fan of Justice
And
League.
and not only that, we get to see other villains I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, and so I was already hyped as it was with this one, because after seeing Wonder Woman that came out earlier this year, it showed that DC looks like they're having their hopes going in the right direction this time, because they're actually taking their time with their characters, and they're trying to, have just a well-rounded story that gets you invested with what's happening, and bring hope for the universe that they set up, basically. So with this one, basically, I can say that when I was hearing that the film wasn't really doing too well as far as like critics and everything, it did kind of it honestly didn't surprise me, because to kind of go in a little bit more backstory with this film was once again directed by Zack Snyder, who directed the Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel, and he shot about 75% of the film, I believe. But around the time that he came to doing additional scenes, he actually had to leave production because of a personal issue that happened. And so the director of the Avengers, Joss Whedon, was hired to take over and to direct and do rewrites for the film and do reshoots. And basically, the film was trying to do something, was kind of going in a different direction than what Snyder wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so when the film came out, since the film's been out, it seems like there has been some questions whether or not the original intent was to go from Snyder's direction, or if it was something the studio interfered, because from what we've heard, this film was only 2 hours long, but it felt like there should have been a longer version that should have came out, basically.
Oh yeah, I mean it's kind of hard to believe that out of all the DC films, or even superhero films at that, the runtime just felt weird that it was so short.
Yeah, and so
Because if you minus the credits, if you actually get rid of the credits altogether, the movie is still like, it's not 2 hours. It's actually 155.
yeah,
So like it's weird seeing it that short.
yeah, but I can honestly say that from after seeing Justice League, that I actually did enjoy it. I think that in my opinion, I think this actually fixed a lot of the problems that Batman vs Superman had. And while it still had some similar problems to it, I did feel like it was a step up from that film, and how they have really
It was a step up, yes.
And how
it was a step up from Batman vs Superman. But to me, I kind of felt it's good. It is good. It's a good movie, but I still think it suffers from it. It fixed, like you just stated, it fixed some things from Batman vs Superman, but it still suffers a lot of, a lot of things, and we'll get into that in a second. It feels like they're still not getting the picture of what the fans are bitching about.
Yes. Now, to kind of get in my pros out of the way, I'll say that, once again, Ben Affleck shines in the role as Batman. I think that ever since I saw him in Batman vs Superman, I feel like he is the essential Batman that I've wanted to see in a comic book film. And I think that he along with the rest of the lead members, really carry this movie together. You also got, especially Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman. I mean, we've already seen her, in Wonder Woman already, in that she really defined herself as the character. And here, she is once again presented in such a very, like intellectual type of way. She's, trying to help Batman out and everything. And she even has some great comedy moments with Batman and the rest of the team as well that hold up.
Yeah, exactly. Batman, Ben Affleck, again, does it really good with Batman. I enjoyed his performance. Gal Gadot, she did really good as Wonder Woman again. I loved her in her solo film. She came to A game to this, to her performance. And I like to give a lot of credit to a lot of the new members we saw in this one with Cyborg, and the guy who played Flash, to me, stole the film.
Yes, Ezra Miller. I think Ezra Miller was the main highlight of this movie alone, because not only did I think that he had the best comedy parts, but he also had, out of the characters, I think he had like the most story arc going on that I actually felt like the most invested with.
Yes, his story arc, and like we said, we kind of complain a lot with character development, which is still an issue in this film. But with Flash, it feels like he's just getting kind of started in a way. So you kind of do get a kind of a complete with him, even though we're going to get a solo film, and you still want to see more. But yeah, it did feel like this, like his character was more like kind of finished, like, fulfilled in this movie.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and that, yeah, his comedy really carries this film a lot, because he's playing more like the Peter Parker of this world, and the guy did it perfectly on that. And you can actually see where Whedon, because he did the Avengers, the Marvel is known for its really good comedy, like comedic timing and everything. You can see he brought that to this universe.
Yes, he did, and I actually think it really propelled a lot with the humor as well, because with the additions of Aquaman and Cyborg, the whole team has a great chemistry. They all have great chemistry together, and they show a lot of the humor that Marvel is kind of known for, but it feels very organic, because you really buy a lot of this. The way that the comedy is kind of played, it's timed in such a way that I really got a lot of laughs out of, and it really made me feel like they had a lot of energy for themselves, Even
Wonder Woman had some good comedy in it for what she was given, like using the last thing on Aquaman.
Yeah, and
there's just stuff like that just made you laugh.
Yeah, and the same thing goes for Batman, because surprisingly, well, not counting Batman and Robin, this is actually the first time I can say Batman actually has some comedy parts in this that I actually laughed at.
You know what? In a way, it's funny that Flash kind of feels like he's playing Robin.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, because I really enjoyed him and Batman together the most out of all the characters. Everybody's chemistry is perfect in this. I just really enjoyed Flash and Batman's chemistry.
Yes, me too. And you know what? I can also say, as far as my other praises as well, that the film also grants a unlike the other films, which were kind of building more up with their storyline, this one kind of succeeds in more of a quicker pace than the other films, because unlike some of like Batman vs Superman, where it was kind of taking a while to get where it needs to go, this one, because the running time is about 2 hours, it does go at a faster pace, and you can tell that the storyline is a lot more simplistic, because it's really just them having to team up together to save the world from Steppenwolf, who's trying to basically do kind of like what Zod was doing in Man of Steel, by creating a new Earth that's full of the Mother Boxes, to make the parademon, with his parademons and stuff.
Yeah, you do get Steppenwolf, like where his purpose is a lot more clear and it makes more sense. We all know that Batman vs Superman, what it suffered was with Doomsday, was only in it for like the last 10 minutes, which really pissed a lot of people off. So it was good that they were like, you know what, we focused on too many villains in these other movies. Let's cut it down a notch. I did like that.
Yeah, I did too. And plus, I really enjoyed the way that the film's visual style, they actually made it a lot more lighter. Because unlike the other films where it's kind of like more darker and more like edgier kind of vibe, this one, I'm glad that because they were going for more a lighthearted type of superhero film, the way that the cinematography and the visual effects are worked with the action scenes and stuff, it really makes you feel like the lighter tone actually enhances the mood of the film.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that. I'm glad they went lighthearted on this one. I love dark superhero films, but I think the dark needs to be saved for the later ones as the shit gets really bad.
Yeah.
That's when they need to do the dark. I think they all should start lighthearted, and I thought that was a smart move on their point to actually make this one more lighthearted. And not only that, visually, this movie is a visually stunning film. There are some people that do complain with CGI, and there's some little minor CGIs. I'll get to that in a moment, but overall, the visuals and the CGI was not bad at all. It was really good.
Yeah, I did too. Now, I didn't see this in 3D, but I saw this in IMAX, and the way that the action scenes were lit and everything, it really puts you into that. It gave it that epic it made you really feel that epic vibe coming from it, especially when you get into the stuff where when they're fighting the parademons and everything, they really showcase a lot of their visual designs, especially when you see Flash like moving in fast speeds and stuff. I love the way that looks with his lighting effects.
Exactly, and I was able to see it in 3D, and the 3D was from what I mean. It suffers the same typical movie where it wasn't originally shot, so half of it's not going to be really 3D. But when it does show the 3D, like the flash lightning bolts and stuff, it comes out of the screen. It looks really good.
Yeah, definitely, and in fact, there's some of my favorite action parts are involved with Flash and also with Batman as well, because like, and especially when we get to our final climax, that's when we have like the ultimate battle that takes place, and it got me. It made me feel like I was watching an episode of the animated series again. I thought it was very great.
Yeah, they did. Unlike Batman vs Superman, they do a final battle that lasts a little longer, which makes it feel more. It's better. I hate whenever a lot of superhero films that rush the ending, like Batman vs Superman, they rushed Doomsday in at the end, and the final battle was just like, it was there, but it was quick and it was over with. This one actually draws it out more.
Yeah,
so it is good.
Yeah, definitely. And one of my last praises I will say too is, surprisingly, this film that has a score that's by Danny Elfman, that actually, not going to spoil anything, but it actually has a score that sounds very reminiscent of one of the older Batman movies, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yep. But you'll have to go to our spoiler review to hear what that is if you want to know.
Yes,
so.
and there's also another.
I did like that.
There's also another score that takes place that's from another superhero film that I actually really thought was pretty cool too, to hear that.
Yep.
So Danny Elfman's score was actually pretty memorable in this movie. Not quite as on par with Hans Zimmer's music, but I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are like my main pros with the film, is that it is a very fun, entertaining movie that really brings in the world, that finally brings in the world of DC to a T, with where they're going to be setting up with the future, and they finally bring in some things that are a lot more straightforward.
And that being said, with all the good stuff, unfortunately this movie does have its flaws. Not as bad as Batman vs Superman, but it sure does have its flaws. Starting with one of mine, this is kind of like a reshoot problem. As we were saying, about 60-70% of this movie had to be reshot, and it depends what theater you saw it in. Some saw it, some didn't notice it. It just depends where you're at. It does suffer one of its big problems with reshoots with Harvey Keitel, Superman.
Henry Cavill.
Yeah, Henry Cavill. I can't really say his name. Henry Cavill, and oh man, there's a part where I guess they couldn't get him on, back on set to reshoot a lot of the scenes, because there are like 2 movies that's coming out that he was on part, he was in the middle of doing. So they suffered of not being able to bring him back on board on a lot of time, on some scheduling issues. So there was a lot of scenes where you do notice that his face on the bottom half doesn't look like him. Like his teeth and everything, it looks like another actor, and you can actually tell on some parts. Not all of it. Some of it they kept in, so it didn't have that issue, but some parts, yes. Mainly the beginning part and a little bit in the, towards the ending, final battle part.
Yeah, I see. That's kind of
bothered me a little bit, because I was like, oh man, you can tell it's reshot.
Yeah, that part I can kind of see what people were talking about. The difference with me was that because I didn't notice it that much, I guess I didn't really, see it that much as well.
Believe it or not, it's actually the unfortunate part. It was what theater you went to. Some theaters made it really noticeable. Some theaters that you went to, then you didn't notice it. It just depends where you saw it at. And where I saw it at, yeah, you can tell. Now, I don't get the Ben Affleck one because I did not notice that, and that's what everybody was bitching about. But, yeah, the Superman one, golly, his mouth, you can tell it's from another actor.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of get into some of my cons, one of my biggest thing goes with you, like you were saying about the reshoots. It feels like when Joss Whedon was brought in to finish the film from Snyder, I really felt like while he did do good on the writing part as far as the humor and everything, you could kind of tell that some jokes may not have worked like they were intended to go for, and there were some things that either Whedon had either dropped from the movie or the studio did, which I think it was the studio because there are key points in the film where from the way the editing is going, you would have a scene where one character is talking about something, and then immediately following it goes into the next scene where it's already resolved. So it's like either we got a huge gap of editing that seems like they should have filled in right there.
Yeah, I agree with you on the editing. The editing is really choppy. Not as bad as Batman vs Superman was, but yeah, mainly the first half, big time. It does feel like the editing is really choppy, and it feels like you are missing a lot. And we'll probably see another big ultimate cut of this. Another thing I gotta say, even though a lot of people do praise this, and it comes with it's kind of a pro con. It is good that they cut down on the time, but at the same time, I do feel like that hurts it too on a lot of character development and of what they could do with the story. Not going into too much detail with Steppenwolf and you get what I'm saying. It feels like because they cut it down so much on runtime, it feels like the movie's moving a little too fast.
Yeah, it does, especially when you have stuff that's supposed to be going on with some of the other members of the league. It feels like because there's actually sequences in the trailer that are supposed to be in the film, but they cut out, and it makes you really wish that they were included in the movie because they would have added more depth with what the members are going through. And speaking of which, as far as Steppenwolf, yeah, even though Steppenwolf is pivotal to the story, and while I appreciate that he was brought in to motivate the team to save the world, I did feel like he was just a very standard villain, and he wasn't really much of a threat. I felt like the Avengers.
Exactly.
I felt like the League could have beat him so easily.
That he voids throughout this film. He voids like for the majority of part of hurting the Justice League. Like he just wants something else.
Yeah.
And I really didn't get into that part, even though I did like Steppenwolf, the actual guy that played him, and the voice and everything, the look of him was cool. He does feel very standard.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with DC in general, is that they haven't brought us a very memorable villain. Because, in my opinion, the only two villains that I thought were at least kind of worthy in some of the other films was Zod and maybe Doomsday, at least. But the rest of them, they're just kind of there. They don't really have much memorability to them.
Exactly.
So this is something that I hope they can fix in the future, because it seems like every DC film has kind of suffered from that.
Yep.
Another thing I had too was that there are some points with some of the members of one of the members, at least I think with Aquaman, while the other members at least have some things going on with their storyline with the League. I felt like Aquaman's could have been. It felt like he was the only one that kind of like stood out the most, because it seemed like he didn't really have much of kind of an arc, so to speak. I think he was brought in.
They didn't. Yeah, he did. They really cut him to like oblivion, where you almost want to question until you actually see the Aquaman movie of his purpose.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get his purpose of joining the team and everything, because it's supposed to show something to where it's supposed to. I guess it's supposed to be explained in the movie somewhere of why he joins them and everything like that.
Well, that's the thing. They cut that explanation out, which another studio issue, cutting things out, is what makes Aquaman's presence messy.
Yeah. And there are some parts, too, where some of the CGI feels like it could be, like you were going back, they could be a little noticeable at times, especially when you have large sequences where they're fighting and everything. Some of it does feel a little too green screeny at most, but for the majority
that really bothered me, probably the only thing, because overall the movie's visually is really good and the CGI is really good. The one that's really gets me noticeable is Aquaman's world. That little split scene they show is quick, because they do show his world for like a few minutes, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, that kind of looks,
Yeah, I got you.
Where he swims and all that, yeah, you can kind of tell.
Well, and another issue I had, too, is that I felt like, now I'm not going to spoil this, but there is something that happens in the film that I felt like if they would have done something a little better, okay, I don't want to bring this up until we get to the spoiler section, but there is a part in this film that when you go see it, it's a part that's supposed to play pivotal to the next movie, and I felt like they could have done a lot better job with it. But I'm not gonna. I'm gonna leave it there because I don't want to spoil it until we get to the spoiler discussion. Um,
Yeah.
So, but overall, though, I can say that Justice League was a good step up from the other DC films. Now, it's not as great as Wonder Woman because I think so far that's been the best movie of the universe. But I feel like from the way the direction's going with DC, what they've lined up to, I think that there is hope now with the future films coming out that they're going to really bring into. They're going to get back on track with things.
I'm hoping. I'm still not fully sold. I'm a little bit more, okay, maybe, but I'm still skeptical at the same time. It's not, they're not bad movies. It's just, I'm hoping the studio steps down from control because they need to really back off.
Yeah, definitely. But overall, though, with that being said, I feel like this movie was very entertaining. I'm glad I got to see it in IMAX and everything like that. And with that, I'm actually going to give the film an 8 out of 10.
I'm going to give the Justice League a 7.5 out of 10.
Fair enough. And for those of you who have also seen Justice League and also the other DC films, let us know in the comments of what you guys thought about it as well. And we'll be coming up with a spoiler discussion on our next review. And if you guys like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe to our channel and check out some other reviews here. And you can also feel free to check out our website at filmfreaks.com. And we'll be seeing you in our next review. We'll see you later.
Later.